Welcome back to the Top Notch Documentaries YouTube channel. The emergence of new DNA technology has proven to be a game changer when it comes to identifying previously unidentified victims of crimes, decades after the crime originally occurred. Many unsolved cases still exist in the United States today, but in 2019 some new updates on a 4-decade-old case came to light. The case of a previously unidentified female murder victim, nicknamed Orange Socks. In this video, I cover this Halloween murder mystery out of Georgetown, Texas. Hope you enjoy. The year was 1979, and the date was October 31st, Halloween. The body of an adult female wearing nothing but orange socks had been found in a concrete ditch outside of Georgetown, Texas. The woman had seemingly been hastily dumped from an overpass, her body having been forced to endure more trauma as she was further degraded by her killer. The crime scene location was close to Interstate 35, and because of this detail and her lack of clothing, crime scene investigators had arrived to inspect the scene and figure out just what had occurred. Similar crime scenes had been present along the same stretch of interstate, and investigators felt as though it fit the profile of an active serial killer. It was clear from the positioning of her body and the marks around her neck that she had died from manual strangulation, not long prior to her body having been discovered.
4 people found murdered last month, all along Interstate 35. 3 in Travis County, and the latest right here last night, 5 miles north of Georgetown.
There was the body of a young white female, estimated to be in the 20s, laying at the foot of that culvert right there, below the guardrail. You will see a trail through the grass where the body was dragged across the guardrail, through the grass, and then apparently dropped over the culvert. There are blood stains there. There was a small amount of blood at the scene.
Do you have any idea who did this?
No, sir, we don't. At this time, we've not even identified the victim.
Do you think it might be tied in with the Travis County murders?
There is a possibility it could be tied in with those, possibly some also in the Fort Worth area.
At autopsy, more details emerged that police believed may help to figure out her identity. The woman was in her early 20s, had scarring on her legs from childhood insect bites, and she had abnormally long toes and what was described as unique earlobes. The case was now officially a homicide investigation, and appeals for information went out to the public in nearby Georgetown, but unfortunately, these didn't lead to any solid conclusions. Investigators believed that Orange Socks could have been from out of town, most likely leading a nomadic existence, and this made finding her true identity a struggle. The 1970s was certainly a much different time. Technology wasn't around, but thankfully investigators from the time had managed to obtain DNA samples from the victim. Knowing that DNA comparison could one day prove to be useful, they were stored away safely and kept secure for 4 decades. Following the discovery of the woman, she was given a nickname which helped her to stand out from other cases of unidentified murdered women along American interstates. She was named Orange Socks, as investigators looked through hundreds of missing persons reports in a desperate bid to find potential matches to her. This would have proved a significant challenge given the lack of an online missing persons database, which has also proven to be a game changer in more recent years. Investigators had little to go on, and the case expectedly went cold. It wasn't until an already incarcerated serial killer started making claims about being the one responsible that police began to take notice. They now began to believe that the murder was close to being solved. In the year 1984, serial killer Henry Lee Lucas had actually been convicted of Orange Sock's murder following a confession. Lucas had actually had a habit of confessing to murders, and at first police believed him. Lucas later recanted his confession. Like many other serial killers, Lucas heavily inflated his victim count as he gained privileges from confessing to crimes whilst incarcerated. Police ultimately figured that Lucas was lying to them, based on contradictions in his story. Like many cases where a victim isn't identified, the case doesn't end up progressing for many years. As the years came and went, the case of Orange Socks lay dormant, awaiting a new chance for re-examination. Just who was this woman in her early 20s? Was she from Texas? Or had she moved to Texas from another state? Investigators would one day get some resolution to this puzzling Halloween story. A new generation of investigators would eventually focus in on this cold case. It was just one of many unsolved cases that was looked into, and it was thrusted back into the spotlight once again. A sketch of the unidentified female was released to the public in a bid to garner tips and hopefully jog someone's memory. Miraculously, within a matter of months, a woman called the set-up tip line about the case, and she claimed that she recognised the sketch. It resembled her long-lost sister, who she had last seen in 1977. The woman said that her sister was named Debra Jackson and she was originally from Abilene, Texas. The sisters last spoke in the year 1977, and it turned out that she had never even been reported missing by her family. This was in part because she had a history of leaving home and not returning for long periods of time. This could explain why she had not been identified sooner. Not long after Debra's sister phoned into the tip line, genealogy DNA comparison tests were conducted and sent off for examination. Whilst investigators had been awaiting these results, they had been delving into Debra Jackson's movements to better understand what could have led up to her murder. Debra had lived in quite a few different places in Texas. These included the city of Abilene, where her family resided and she left here in 1977, the city of Amarillo in 1978, and one that most of you who have been following my channel for a while shall remember, the city of Azle, where Israel Keys robbed a bank. Debra had worked a number of odd jobs in each of these cities, and it sounded like she moved from place to place, which matched what the original detectives had theorised decades prior. Debra had been a drifter, and the financial check by investigators revealed that her life had seemingly come to a standstill in 1979. Everyone was confident that Debra was Orange Socks, even prior to the DNA testing. She just seemed to fit, and at last, after 4 decades, her identity was finally given back to her. Orange Socks was indeed Debra Jackson. It must have been an emotional time for family of Debra. They hadn't reported her missing, and were unaware that her life had been taken all those years ago. Her killer was still out there, but it was revealed in the same year that the DNA profile of 2 or more males had been found whilst analysing the orange socks. At this time, it is unclear if these profiles will ever lead to the capture of the killer or killers. Still, this is the starting point, and it is great that after all of these years the victim has finally been identified. This murder mystery on Halloween has partially been solved, but there is still a killer or killers out there that have eluded prosecution for Debra Jackson's murder. They deserve to be formally charged and incarcerated for the crime, and hopefully they will one day face punishment for the crime. This has been the case of Orange Socks, Debra Jackson. As always, thank you for watching.